The law of bigger fears states this. Do you agree that there is a way to frame things that are more painful if you give things certain meaning? So let me explain the law of bigger fears. Let's say you're procrastinating on a project, on anything, doesn't make a difference. Can you put your something that you're procrastinating in the chat right now? So put whatever it is that you're procrastinating, okay, right now if you can, all right? Put something in the chat of what you're procrastinating right now. Let me share with you the law of bigger fears. So we talked about the law of little actions. We talked about the law of secondary gains, but let's take a look at anything that you are procrastinating right now. I want you to write out, okay, and you don't have to do it right now, but if you ask yourself, what am I gaining? How am I gaining by procrastinating? So I feel safe, I feel secure, I don't have to expend energy, etc. Also, next to that, I want you to write down, what is the cost of procrastinating? What's the cost of procrastinating like this? On your self-worth and self-esteem, on your income, on your relationship, on your self-image of how you see yourself, on your self-trust. So if and when I procrastinate, the cost to me is more than just the completion of the goal, but the cost to me is loss of self-respect. The cost to me is I reinforce a pattern of procrastination. The cost to me is I repeat patterns that I reinforce. The cost to me, what is the cost to you of procrastinating? And here's what we can do. If you make the cost to you bigger than the reward you're getting for not doing it, let me repeat that. If you make the cost of not doing it, the bigger fear, the bigger cost, greater than the cost, or I'm sorry, that the reward you're getting, then now we have what's called is a contrast frame. Not doing this gives me, this, which we know we get, but not doing this also costs me this and reinforces this. So now you say, not doing it, I get these rewards, but here is what the cost is of staying in my job, Michelle. Here's what the real cost is on my income, my self-worth, my self-esteem, my children, my spouse, my significant other. And if you believe and agree with me that whatever behaviors we reinforce, we become. Whatever behaviors we reinforce, we become. Why? Because of something called automaticity in the brain. Once we reinforce a pattern, the pattern then moves into a subconscious automated sequence. So there's no thought involved in repeating the pattern because it's easy and it doesn't require very little energy. So when we're talking about the law of bigger fears, the law of bigger costs, now we can use a contrast frame, and our brain is great at avoiding the bigger pain. Did you hear what I just said? Your brain, my brain, is great at avoiding the bigger of the two pains. And since we do more to avoid pain than we do to gain pleasure, if we're procrastinating because we're gaining some kind of safety and pleasure, our brain will move away from the greater of the two. And the greater of the two is moving away from the bigger cost.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 and 9. For my top 10, top 10, 9 and 9. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, John Assaraf, and my take on his top 10 rules for success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, first, make the decision.
There are a variety of different ways to find ways to remove the darkness. We can read. We can go to YouTube and watch videos. We can be on social media. We can join groups. We can be part of masterminds. We can hire a coach. We can go and work for somebody, who knows how to do what you want to learn how to do. And so the first part, though, is to become resourceful in the absence of resources. So I'll give you an example. Mr. Brown says, I'll be your mentor, your guru. And I said, awesome. And the next thing he said to me, he says, well, I need you to move from Montreal to Toronto. And I said, what? I don't know anybody in Toronto. I said, I don't have any money to get an apartment. I don't have a car. I don't have a job. He says, well, you don't need money, a car, an apartment, or a job. First, you need to make the decision. Then you figure out how to get all the rest. Yeah. I said, I know, but you don't understand. I left high school in grade 11. I have $60 in the bank. He says, that's okay. He says, make the decision, then you figure out how. So I said, well, maybe I could move in with my brother. My brother said, yeah, you can move in with me short term, sleep on the sofa, because it's only a 1-bedroom apartment that I live in. And so I ended up moving to Toronto. And then right after that, at the same sentence, the same lunch that I had with him, he said, and I need you to enroll in the real estate school that costs $500, and it starts on April the 20th. And this was in 1980, just to give you an example.
Oh, I was born.
I said, you want me to go back to school? I left school at grade 11. I failed English. I failed math. I'm terrible at school. And I need $500. I only have $60 in the bank account. Right. I understand, but first you make the decision, and then you figure out how. I said, Mr. Brown, I don't have any money. Like, I can't make the decision, to go into school. He says, oh, yes, you can. He says, many people think that you have to have the tools, the knowledge, the skills, the resources before you make the decision. And he said, John F. Kennedy made a decision to put a man safely on the moon and return him back to Earth before we even had the technology to be able to do that. He says, average people look at their current circumstances and their past, and they allow that to dictate what they do or don't do. He says highly successful people create a vision for what they want, and then they use their powerful brain to figure out how they can because they must. So I said, fine, I'll find the money. Well, my brother then said, well, I can lend you $100. My mother lent me some money. My sister lent me some money. 3 weeks later, I moved to Toronto, took the real estate course. 5 weeks later, I passed the real estate test because I studied every day and he showed me how to. And so in 5 weeks, I moved to another state. I found the money for a course I didn't have money for. I passed the test even though I thought I wasn't very smart. I became a licensed real estate agent, all because I made a commitment to doing it, even though I didn't know how, even though I didn't have the resources, the financial or non-financial resources. So one of the greatest lessons he shared with me is vision comes first, goals come second, strategies of how you're going to achieve them come third.
Rule number 3, study the patterns.
If you take a look at, Dr. J, and you take a look at Vince Carter, you take a look at Dwayne Wade, and you take a look at any of the players today, LeBron, they studied the patterns of other great players. And that's what is really fun that's the fun I'm having now is I know that if I gave 100 people the blueprint of what to do, one might do it. But if I trained 100 people's brains to focus on what I want them to focus on, and I trained them how to manage their emotions, and I gave them the blueprint of what to do, I can get 60 to take action and follow through. And you may ask, how do I know this? Because I know when I used to sell our coaching programs for $5, $10, $20, $30, $50, $100,000, when we didn't do the mindset training and the emotional management training, the success of our clients was maybe 5 or 6%. And when we did include the mindset, the emotional management, and the skill sets, 62% of our clients started to achieve phenomenal success.
Rule number 4, don't minimize who you are.
A why that makes you cry.
That deep. Why that makes you cry. If the deeper you can get this,
And the deeper you can not be afraid to go there.
Yes.
And say, yes, I matter, and I can make a difference in my life and my friends or kids or husband or wife and family and community and mankind. That is what inspires you.
Yes.
Right?
Internally.
It's spirit within you is expressing itself that way versus doing things that expire you. When you minimize who you are, you're expiring your spirit.
Wow. I love that
Versus
so
doing
much.
things that inspire, that allow spirit to express itself more fully. Spirit is always for fuller expression and expansion of itself. Right? But we get these disempowering, expiring beliefs and habits and perspective and perceptions from ignorant people that we grew up around, not because they were bad people. They just didn't know.
They didn't know any better.
They didn't know any better.
Yes.
And now we know better. And so if we know better, let's do better, and feel better and be better and give better. And that's what it's all about.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, ask better questions.
Let's say you ask yourself a question and you say to yourself, I don't know. Say, I don't know. Have you ever done that? Am I the only one that sometimes when I ask a question, I go, I don't know? Then I ask myself, I understand, but if I did know, what could it be? So I want to go layer by layer by layer to ask better questions. The better questions I ask, the more my brain will look to solve the answer, won't it? Right? So I ask really good questions of my brain. And if I ask myself, why am I procrastinating? I don't know. So, well, if I did know, what would it be? I don't know. Well, could I go onto Google and find out why I procrastinate? Yes. Am I willing to? Sure. When? Right now. Right? If I go down another path, if I don't know, is it possible that somebody else knows the answer to this? Is there a book that the answer is in? Is there a YouTube video? Is there an Instagram post? Is there something on Pinterest? Is there something somewhere online that I can find an answer to my question if I keep saying I don't know? So the answer is, of course the answer is there. It's 2021, the middle of 2021. Of course the answers are here. The answers are here for how to lose weight and keep it off. The answers are here on how to double your income in the next 12 months. The answers are here for how to leave a job that you hate and get a new one that you love. The answers here for how to start a business. The answers here for how to put a rocket ship on Mars. The answers here for how to be spiritually connected. The answers are here. So is it possible that maybe we haven't learned to be great question askers? And if it's possible that this biocomputer always finds the answer based on the questions that we're asking. So if you're asking yourself, why can't I ever achieve this? Your brain's going to go, let me show you why. Why is this so hard? Well, I'll show you why. How come I can't figure it out? Those are questions. Ask questions whereby the answer means you're moving forward. Did you hear that? Ask questions whereby the answer you give yourself moves you forward. So you're never stuck finding the answer to the problem, you find the answer to the solution. Did you hear that? Don't find the answer to the problem or the obstacle. find the answer to the solution. What has to happen in order for me to take action? Whose help do I need to take action? What do I need to learn? What do I need to start? What should I stop?
Rule number 6, Innercise.
The question should be, why am I having a hard time making the decision first? And the answer is because of fear. So I fear that if I make the decision and I fail, then I'm a failure. I fear that if I make the decision and it doesn't work out, then I'm going to be disappointed. I fear that if I'm disappointed and maybe I disappoint you, then I'm going to be embarrassed or ashamed or ridiculed or judged, or worse yet, rejected. Everybody understands you can exercise to strengthen your muscles, your organs, your ligaments. But have you ever considered that you can innercise your core neuromuscles? So what if we said that focus is a neuromuscle? And you could learn how to focus on how to do something versus how not to do something. What if awareness was a neuromuscle and you could be aware of the negative and the positive? What if you could be aware of emotions that cause feelings, and some feelings I want to move away from and some feelings I want to move towards? Is it possible that my habits are just a cluster of neuromuscles that have been reinforced, and I could learn how to delete or get rid of disempowering habits? And if I understand how to innercise, do mental and emotional techniques and some physical work, I can strengthen new habits. Is it possible that our beliefs are neuromuscles, and I have some that are weak and some that are strong? And it's possible, based on the latest neuroscience, to create a new self-image that overrides an old self-image. So a self-image is kind of like a self-image neuromuscle that holds itself in place, and we walk around like we have a frame around our self-image. We take it everywhere we go. Well, what if we could set aside our old self-image and create a brand new one with more confidence, more certainty, more personal power? Well, we can do that through behavior, of course, and taking inspired action and gaining more confidence and certainty. But we can also do that, for example, by visualizing ourselves taking action, by visualizing, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And one of the sentences that I love in the world of visualization is, in the human brain, visualization is simulation. And when we practice simulations that are new beliefs, new habits, new self-image, practice makes permanent. So if we understand how our brain, our neuromuscles are formed, what if we just said, okay, how do you build, let's say, a bicep muscle? Let's say it's weak. It's very, very weak. Well, let's say you just did this every day for 10 days and you just squeezed at the top. It would get stronger, right? Well, what if I took a 1 pound weight the next week and I did this? It would get stronger, right? And what if I did 3 pounds, then 5 pounds, then 10 pounds? It might take me 90 days, but if I can only do my arm right now, and 90 days worth of practicing made my biceps stronger, what if I did 90 days of practicing in here?
So good.
Now I can practice in here and I could do this. And all the research shows that whatever we practice, we make permanent, and whatever is permanent that we reinforce becomes fixed. So maybe we have some beliefs that are fixed that we just need to replace. Maybe we have some habits that are disempowering us. We just need to replace them. Maybe we have a self-image challenge that is just not healthy, and we just need to replace our self-image because we weren't born with any fears. We weren't born with any beliefs. We weren't born with a self-image. We weren't born with any of the things that are holding us back. So Innercise is really about how to use mental and emotional techniques that you back up with taking action a little bit at a time, that over 30, 60, 90, 180 days a year you strengthen it and you have more confidence, more certainty, more personal power. So now your self-image, self-worth, and your identity matches the destiny you want.
Rule number 7, tap into intelligence.
I was born into the Jewish faith, but I celebrate holidays with my kids, but I'm not religious. And the reason I say God is because I believe that within me is God. Within you and everybody watching or listening is God. The intelligence that lives, breathes, is in everything and in everyone, is where all of the knowledge and intelligence is in the universe. And by tapping in, by using our electromagnetic switching station called our brain into the field of all knowledge and intelligence and all of the information that exists in the field of intelligence, I have access to the entire Congress of Library of Congress for everything ever that has been created or will be created. So that's the source of all supply. That's the source I want to learn from.
Rule number 8, adapt.
Do you know why right now is the easiest time in the world to grow your business? Because 95% of people are messed up in their head thinking that it's a tough time to grow your business. And they're allowing what's happening, whether it's with coronavirus, they're allowing whatever's happening with their governments or their local marketplaces to control their thinking and their emotions. And right now, people are buying even when you think that they're not. I can tell you this because I work with a group of entrepreneurs, all right, privately, that pay me a lot of money. And every single one of them has weathered the storm that we've been in for the last 12 months, and they're making money. So the question for you is, what's really in your way? Is it possible that you are in your way, your mindset, or the feelings you have about what's going on? How many of you are doing better right now? How many of you are doing better right now? And how many of you are still buying stuff because you need it or want it? So heck yeah, right? People are buying like crazy right now. When people are stressed, they buy more. When people are not stressed, they buy. Now, here's something that I want you to be closely paying attention to. Whatever it is that you believe is holding you back is holding you back. If you did not or have not focused on being an adaptationist, if you did not or are not focusing on being an adaptationist, then you are falling behind. Because right now, there is more change happening in the world and in the world of business specifically than we've had change in the last 20 years. Even through all of the other recessions, all right, we didn't have as many changes as we have right now. And with the online world, okay, giving us access to each other, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Clubhouse, etc., we have the ability to adapt and shift, but the adaptation mindset is what you need to do first. When we are focusing on the negativity of what's happening out there, then we're affecting what's happening in here. So when we focus, number one, on being an adaptationist, that I will adapt to whatever the circumstances are out there, and we ask ourselves a question: what has to happen in order for me to double or triple my income in the next 12 months? Here's the question that I want you to ask yourself. Okay, so are there, 7.5, almost 8 billion humans on the planet? Yes. Are there people who could benefit from my product or service that I don't even know right now, but they're looking for my product or service? Yes or no? Yes. Is it possible that if I adapt and shift, then I can find those people online or offline, if that's what my focus is? If I adapted and found the people who are also looking for me, online or offline, could you double or triple your income this year if you focus just on that?
Rule number 9, be committed.
Do you believe that if you are committed, not interested, but if you are committed to achieve any goal, health, wealth, relationships, career, business, travel, money, public speaking, whatever, write a book, do you agree that if you're committed, you can find an answer? If you're committed, you will find an answer. If you're interested, you'll find excuses and reasons why you can't. So why not just say, I'm committed to stopping procrastination. I'm committed to finding an answer. I'm committed to solving this. I'm committed to upgrading my knowledge. I'm committed to upgrading my skills. I'm committed to changing my beliefs. I'm committed to letting go of disempowering habits. I'm committed to do whatever it takes, honestly, ethically, professionally. I'm committed. I'm a committed person to achieve goals, not a committed person to have goals. I'm a goal achiever, not a goal setter. Of course, we do both, right?
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is create a vision board.
Whenever I want to create anything, whether it's my physical body, a home, a car, a trip, there's a big part of our brain called the occipital lobe, back of our brain. Even when light comes in through our eyes, right, cells in the back of our brain activate and an image pops up in our brain. And that image that pops up into our brain is connected to the motivational center and the thinking center part of our brain. So if a negative image pops up, we reduce our motivation and we don't take action. And then we reinforce that pattern. But let's say I have an image of something that I really want, something that inspires me, that as soon as I pop up that image in my brain, I actually release dopamine, the reward neurochemical in my brain that actually creates motivation, that's actually tied to what I call as the Einstein part of the brain that can actually help you figure out how to achieve that thing. And so I create images of what is it that I want to create for health, wealth, relationships, career, business, charity, fun, and experiences, so that I can activate the reward circuits in my brain, the motivational circuits in my brain, the thinking centers in my brain to help me figure out how to achieve it. But the other purpose of a vision board is to give your brain the instruction of, this is the stuff that's important to me that I want to create, do, be, have, or give.
Right.
So, we all have, 50,000 thoughts a day. We all have so much with social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or Clubhouse or whatever, all the different, stations and channels are, and the people that want to gather our attention. Well, why don't we become better at focusing our attention on what we want to trade our life for?
Now I've got a special bonus clip that I think you're gonna enjoy, but before that, it's time for the question of the day. I wanna know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? When you watch a video and just get motivated, the science says you have a 35% chance of actually following through on your goals. That's not good enough. No, not for you, Believe Nation. We gotta do something. But when you write it down and you create a specific plan of action for the next week, that number jumps to 91% chance of you following through. And when you commit to somebody else, like leaving a comment on this video, it jumps to 95%. You need to follow through on your goals. So what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your specific plan of action for the next week? Put it down in the comments below so I can celebrate you.
When I was a younger entrepreneur, I didn't really know anything about time management. And I later came out to find that there is no such thing as time management. And I'll explain in just a second. I'll come back to that. So here I am looking at this bill from my lawyer. His name was Don Gardner. And I'm on the phone with him. And I'm telling him, what in the world is this bill for $1,800 for? I didn't use up $1,800 of your time. He says, of course you did. He said, let me send you some evidence that you did use $1,800 of my time. So he sends me this information, and I take a look at the document that he sends me, and it has everything marked out in 15-minute increments. And I'm looking at this, and I'm reviewing everything that's on this document, and I recall talking to him about that stuff, but I didn't know that he was charging me for every single discussion that I had with him. And so I said to him, I said, Don, what the hell is this? We talked about this, I get that, but like, I didn't know that you're charging me for every 15 minutes. And here is what he said to me. He said, as a lawyer, I sell my time and my expertise and my knowledge and my contacts. And if I don't keep track of my time in 15-minute increments, he said, clients like you, meaning me, take advantage of it because they don't remember all the things that they are asking me for. Now, that's not what the lesson was. The lesson in here was this: because he was keeping track of what he did every 15 minutes, he could determine who his best clients were. He could determine where to put energy, time, and focus. And because he kept track of what he did, he also was able to keep track of when he wasn't making his highest income per hour. And so I'm going to ask you a question. Do you know what your highest income producing activity is? Do you know that there's no such thing as time management? The only thing you can manage is what you do in time. So let's say you work 10 hours a day like I do. I'm an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur. Do you know which activities pay you the most? So I'm fortunate, I get paid a lot of money per hour, $5,000 per hour when I'm consulting, $50,000 for a 1-hour keynote. And that means that if I don't know what my hourly activity is, I may be missing out on opportunities. And so I divide my time into 2 types of blocks. One is what I call my highest income producing activities. And so I have a list of when I get paid the most amount of money and how many hours a week I want to focus on my highest income producing activities. So me doing this video, for example, because I love video, I love to share, I love to give value to people, this is a high impact activity. I'm not making any money doing this video, but it's a high impact activity because I can share it with the world, which is one of my, highest values of contribution. So I divide high income and high impact activities into chunks of time, whether it's 15-minute chunks or 30-minute chunks or 1-hour chunks of time. And I know that I want to invest, let's say, 10 hours a week on high impact activities, things that give me the most purpose, the most meaning, things that allow me to make high income activities possible as well. So if I'm working, for example, with my team on an idea for a product, an idea for marketing, an idea for a series we want to create, that is a high impact activity, meaning that activity is going to have a high impact somehow. And so I want you to do this little exercise. I want you to write down everything you do. Don, my lawyer, had a list of everything that he did every single day. And he actually gave me this sheet that he used to track every 15 minutes. And then guess what I did? I tracked every 15 minutes to see what I was doing. And you know what? I was wasting so much time on what I call are the trivial many versus the critical few. If you want to have a little fun, take out your calendar, wherever you keep all of your appointments, and look at your calendar and see how many hours were you working on high income producing activities, meaning that the activity produced income. Whether you were selling in front of an audience, whether you were making a sale on the phone, that's a high impact activity. Or when you were preparing to create something that you need in order to make money, that's a high impact activity. And I want you to rate them A1 for high income or high impact, A2 and A3 for anything less than that. And just start to be aware of where are you investing your time, your energy, and your attention. Here's what I guarantee you're gonna notice. You may be active, but you may not be productive. You may be doing a lot of stuff, but it may not be the things that are gonna really move your business to where you want it to go. If you think about what makes up who we are. So obviously there's genetics. There's our genetic makeup, so our predisposition, our propensities. And that makes up a percentage of how we see the world and how we show up. But then the rest of it, we're trained on. So we're trained to see the world a certain way. So there are certain people that have something called a negativity bias. And a negativity bias is nothing more than they see the negative first. It's not that they don't see the positive, but they see the negative first. There's other people who see positive first. They have a positivity bias and they see that first. And the truth is, in almost every situation, in every circumstance, there's both. You can train somebody to recognize that there's always both, just like every inside has an outside, every one side of a coin has another side of a coin, every up has a down. That's called the law of polarity. And in the universe that we live in, there is that law of polarity. And so you can teach somebody, say, okay, if your propensity, if the way you naturally are is negativity biased first, great, be aware of that. Then flip over. We call it flip the switch. So if one side of your brain is going negativity first, great, learn to flip the switch. Go, great, what's the positive side of that? That's a skill you can learn no differently than playing tennis or chess or music.
When you sit down to meditate, do you come with an intention then each time?
No, once I sit down, then I ask my intuition, hey, what is it that you want to be doing today? What is it that you need today? So we all have this intuition, which is different than our instinct. But this intuition, right, it's what we know before we think. And so when I sit down, I say, okay, hey, what's the intention for today? And sometimes the intention is to just let go and see what happens. Sometimes the intention is I'm searching for an answer. Sometimes the intention is, well, today focus, today let go, today just breathe. So I just listen. It's the art and the subtle science of paying attention. Back in 1987, when I bought the franchising rights for Remax of Indiana, I had no idea how to build a company. I was, 26 years old. And, but I had another mentor who I invested $75,000 to become his partner, to have the opportunity to learn from this man who at the time was worth probably $100 million. And so I was very, very keen on learning, and I didn't know how to build a business. I didn't know anything other than how to sell real estate. And I set a goal to generate $1 billion a year in sales. And I set the goal for 5 years in the future, not knowing $1 billion goal is like mind-boggling big for me. And there was an interview the second week I was in Indianapolis. I moved from Toronto to Indianapolis for this opportunity. And I was interviewed by the Indianapolis Business Journal. And I said in the interview that I had a goal for $1 billion. And the reporter said, are you aware that there's two companies that have been in the state of Indiana for 80 years, one, 100 years, the other one, and they haven't hit $1 billion in real estate sales in all of these years? And I said, yeah, I know, it's Graves and Tucker. And you can let them know that I'll be the first. Right? And as I said that, I almost felt like I put my foot right in my mouth because I didn't know how I was going to do it.
Right.
Long story short, 5 years later, we sold enough franchise, recruited enough agents. We did $1.2 billion, and we were stuck, which is a great place to be stuck. And I was asking myself, how is it possible that I'm training these agents with strategies, with tactics, with selling skills, marketing skills? We were like the gurus of here's the books, here's the cassettes, here's the trainers, here's like out of the deep end. And the agents who, for example, would make $30,000 a year,
kept making 30,000 a year. The agents who made 50 kept making 50. The agents who made 100 kept making 100. And so I realized that they weren't missing the skills or the knowledge. There was something else at play. And what helped me from the age of 19 to 27, 28, 30 was every single day, and I still do it today, and I'll share this with you in just a little bit. Every single day, I was priming my brain with the beliefs and the self-image required to achieve the goals that I wanted.
So when we talk about reprogramming, I think the important thing to understand is 99.9% of what we think, what we feel, and what we do, although most people think I'm in control and I'm the one doing it, it's really non-conscious patterns that are repeating themselves over and over again. So let me explain. When you and I were born, the only neural networks that we had were for survival, right? We didn't have any beliefs of, are we good enough? Are we smart enough? Are we worthy? We didn't have any experiences to show us that that's a scary situation, that one's not. Snakes are safe, or snakes are dangerous, or spiders, or heights, or whatever the case is. So over the course of the first 7 to 10 years of our life, our brain's plasticity switch, our brain's switch that connects all of these neurons and creates the neural map in our brain is being created in the form of millions of connections per second. By the time we're 10 or 12 years old, that switch basically goes off, and now there's more selective creation of neural patterns based on what we like, what we dislike, what we experience, what our parents tell us, what our teachers tell us. Up until that time, we're just an empty, open nest where everything's being formulated. And so what happens is after 10, 12 years old, we're pretty much running on autopilot, and we become conditioned or trained to see the world a certain way, to feel certain things, to behave in certain ways. And so most of our life we're working on autopilot because the non-conscious processing parts of our brain is working at 400 billion bits of information per second and trillions of electrical and chemical reactions per second happening without our thinking about it. And so for adults, 25, 35, 45, 50, we have these patterns that we have to revamp, almost like a remodeling of our own brains. If you think about, when you're driving in a town that whether you're at home or in your city that and all of a sudden you see a detour. If you take a detour and then you start driving down that new detour for a day, 7 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that detour becomes the new easy road to take. Even though you're used to going a certain way. The brain works the exact same way. So if you've got these patterns that are easy for you, your brain wants to take those patterns that are easy for you. Easy thinking patterns, easy emotional patterns, easy behavioral patterns. Why? Number one, because it's less energy that the brain needs to use. So law of best use of energy in the brain is where it goes first. So the way you retrain your brain using, for example, the 4R process is you recognize my patterns of thought, my patterns of emotion, my patterns of behaviors. And you ask yourself, are these going to help me achieve the goal that I want to achieve? Whatever the goal is. It's just yes or no. If they are, great. If they're not, then what you want to be doing is saying, okay, how do I change that path? I'm learning that I could be still. I'm learning that I could be aware of my thoughts, but then let them go, and I come back to focus on a sound wave in this particular meditation. And then what happens is, over a period of practice, you realize that your body disappears. You're no longer in this physical thing. You're no longer having these waves of thought after thought after thought after thought after thought after idea, positive, negative, and everything in between. And in that space of recognizing that I'm not my physical body, I have a physical body. I'm not my thoughts, I have thoughts. I'm not my emotions, I have them. When you start to train yourself to use your brain better, more efficiently, more productively, you realize that I am one with this, incredible universe. So what's the big deal about that? Well, the big deal is that if I am one with this universe, with this energy, with everyone and everything,
And that's where everything percolates from. Is it possible that all my answers are right here, right now, anyway? And the answer is yeah. And so meditation is about practicing. And we know that we have different brain waves. So right now, as people are watching or listening, they're in this beta brainwave frequency where their brain is oscillating at a certain frequency. And there's 50 different brainwaves going on at any given time. But what happens is when I move from beta to alpha to theta, delta, or gamma, I'm actually accessing and activating different parts of my brain, which now gives me this deeper, greater sense of awareness of a much bigger, onion that I'm used to seeing. So I'm living on a layer of an onion. And what if I could see like 10 layers up and 10 layers down? So all of a sudden it's like, wow, look at who I am, what I am, who you are, what you are. And in that realization, in that awareness, I can now start to have different choices made. And so meditation is a practice of awareness. It's a practice of going internal instead of external, which is where most people live their lives every day.
The key is to really understand, first and foremost, that you have a brain. You're not your brain. The whole idea with Innercise, right, is to create a pathway for you to be able to say, okay, here's how my brain works, simply as I've put it today, and here's what I could do about it to move out of a state of chaos and dissonance and into a state of coherence and alignment. When you were born, were you born with any beliefs?
No.
Were you born with any habits?
No.
Were you born with any fears?
No.
No. So from a neuroscience and neuropsychology perspective, a belief is nothing more than this. Imagine that you're born and your brain's made up of 100 billion marbles. And every time you have an experience or somebody says something to you, you read something or you watch something, these marbles make these connections. And the connections that are reinforced go from conscious connections to subconscious connections. And once these subconscious connections are made and reinforced, they run the show 98% of the time. So a belief is nothing more than a reinforced pattern in the brain. And our conscious brain can choose what we want when we're in that part of our brain, but our subconscious mind can't choose. It's programmed from the age of 0 to 3 in the imprinting years, 3 to about 7 or 8 the modeling years, and then 8 on, it's the experiential years. And so if you have these powerful beliefs that you're good enough, you're smart enough, you're worthy to achieve the goals that you have. If you have these powerful beliefs, you are able to achieve any amount of income you choose, no matter what the amount is, you just need to learn how. So if you have these empowering beliefs, you have brain coherence between conscious and subconscious. We're in a society that just goes. Texts, emails, phone calls, Facebook, Twitter, Vine, all these things are keeping us on this perpetual hamster wheel of do, that very few people stop and say, what am I doing? What am I not doing? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? So the first part is stop. Second part is to reframe. It's called the 4R process. Recognize is first. Reframe is the way I'm looking at something. And because we are monofocused, the brain cannot focus consciously on more than one thing at a time. All right? It can get distracted to that thing, then this thing, then that thing, then this thing. The art of multitasking is actually one of the worst things that you can do from a neurological perspective. Highly successful people are able to monofocus on the right things. So when you learn to reframe your brain's ability to look at this, then look at this, then look at this, but stay focused on what it is that you're looking at, you see different perspectives of it. The next part is to release the emotional stress that most people's brains are under. How do we get into this emotional stress? Well, when we have fears, there's 50 different types of fears. Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of disappointment, fear of being embarrassed, fear of being ashamed, fear of being ridiculed, fear of fill in the blank. When our brain goes on these automatic fear circuit drives, then we're in a state of fight or flight. In a state of fight or flight, over a course of a day, a week, a month, our ability to actually use our thinking center, the left prefrontal cortex of our brain, actually diminishes. Our brain gets hijacked into this fight or flight response system over and over and over and over and over again. And that response system is actually pretty healthy initially to get you going and out of the gate. But if you are always in this fight or flight response mechanism, you're on this hamster wheel, you actually start to get burnt out. And you can't think, you can't use the genius part of your brain. You can't really activate the part of you that connects to the entire universe of intelligence within you and outside of you. And so you learn to release that tension to be able to put the foot back on the gas, change the gear. If you think about what happens when you're driving a stick shift car, you put your foot on the gas in first gear and the car just goes. But if you keep your foot on the gas in first gear, you're going to burn out the engine. So what happens in the release part of using your brain is you go from first gear, pause, second gear, pause, third gear, pause. You're able to use the engine more efficiently to go faster. Exact same thing with our brains. If we learn how to release the tension and switch gears, release the tension, switch gears, that's the art of release and go. And that causes the fourth R, and that's we retrain our brain to operate at higher levels of our intelligence, genius, and abilities.
What happens if at the subconscious level, okay, so you have conscious goal, conscious vision, conscious reasons why I want to achieve it. What happens if at the subconscious level, let's say for weight, you've tried to lose weight before, and maybe you have, but then you've gained it back. What if you've done that 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times? Is that pattern, okay, the memory, the pattern, locked in the subconscious mind of all those experiences? Is it there? Here's how the brain works. You set a goal using the left prefrontal cortex of your brain, your imagination, and then right after you set the goal and you're excited because you're making some progress, your brain says, hey, last time you did this, you gained all the weight back. Why even try? Last time you did this, and your friends saw that you did this, and then you gained all the weight back. Next time you saw them, you were embarrassed. You were a little ashamed of yourself. Last time you did this, or the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times before that, you gained all the weight back, and you disappointed yourself and your significant other because they said you looked really great, and then you gained all the weight back. So you disappointed them and yourself, and you were embarrassed or ashamed, and so that pattern is there, right? Do you all agree with me so far? The pattern is there. And so if you have, and think about your imagination and your choice to set a goal is one pattern that you formulate. But if underneath there's a subconscious pattern of embarrassment, shame, failure, guilt, disappointment, etc. If that pattern is also there, then you have 2 opposing patterns. You have one pattern that says, let's go and do this, but you have another pattern that says, but last time you did this, you failed, or you've seen your sister or brother or mother or father or friend do this, and guess what? They gained all the weight back anyway, so why even try? I'm going to keep you safe in your comfort zone. I'm going to conserve energy. And that way I'm going to save you some time and money and energy. Does that make sense to you? That is called cognitive dissonance. That is another way of saying that's called chaos in the brain. And a brain in chaos will do what? It'll just stick around doing the things that it's comfortable doing where it's known.
Something that I learned I think people will benefit from is an anxiety attack, stress, panic, ulcerative colitis. All of these things are effects, right? So they're effects. So the question is, what's the cause?
Yes.
right? So most people are focusing on either, suppressing the effects, depressing the effects, masking the effects. They're doing everything but going, what's causing this?
Yep.
And if we look at the world of cause, whether it's in our physical body, whether it's our relationship, whether it's our bank account, whether it's our business, whatever the result is, every result in the physical world is an effect. So the question is, what causes the results? And one of the greatest laws in the universe is the law of cause and effect. And it states that for every effect, there's a cause, and for every cause, there's an effect. And so I got really inquisitive and curious early on with, can I control more of the cause of my results? And that required responsibility. And when I was younger, it was like I was more into the blame game. It's because of him, because of her, because of it, because of the market, because of where I live, because of my mother, my father, how old I am or how young I am, how Asian or Caucasian I am. It doesn't make a difference. So a lot of my upbringing caused me to look outside of myself. And when I looked inside myself and took the prerequisite of responsibility, I own it.
Yes.
And I can change it.
So important.
That transformed my life. That really started to put things into perspective. When we talk about the word fear, right? So let me start off with another little premise here is most people are highly ignorant in understanding what fear is. Now, I want to make sure people heard me correctly. Ignorance doesn't mean you are stupid. Ignorance means you just don't know. We're all ignorant.
We don't know what we don't know.
Well, we don't know what we don't know, and even the things that we do know may not be accurate. So when we talk about fear, there are 50 different types of fear. All fear is processed in the subconscious mind. The automatic neurochemistry that is created as a result of the meaning that we give certain things that cause us to either be in a state of fear or a state of courageousness is all being processed in our subconscious mind. So what causes fear for you doesn't cause fear for me or for somebody else, or may cause fear in other people. So whether we're standing at the top of a building that's 100 stories high, some people look over and don't have fear, and other people do have fear. Whether there's a giant 10-foot boa constrictor in front of you may cause fear in you, that doesn't cause fear in another person. So it's never the thing that is causing the fear. It's the subconscious interpretation that we've been conditioned to believe. The meaning that we learn to give something determines whether the neurochemistry of fear is activated that causes us to feel a certain way. So the feeling, of being scared, the feeling of being uncertain, this feeling of having self-doubt, the feeling of having too much stress in our life, that is an effect, not a cause. So feelings are conscious, our ability to be aware of this stuff that's going on in our body that we either know or don't know how to handle or do anything with. So feeling is conscious, fear is subconscious. And so if, for example, we have, one of the examples I use is, and you don't have this, obviously, but if I ask 100 people, do you have a fear of public speaking?
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say that.
I'm reading your mind. I'm reading your mind. Well, it's not your fear. And that's what I'm going to say. So the actual fear is of being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, or judged. So if we're afraid of being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, or judged, that has nothing to do with the actual public speaking. It has to do with our self-image and self-esteem and what we think of ourselves and what we believe others will say or think about us, which will affect our own self-image or self-esteem.
Yeah.
So fear is triggered based on subconscious patterns and feelings of certainty about something that may or may not be right. And so I never treat, if you like animals and you like fish, for example, if the fish is sick, you never treat the fish, you treat the water.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. I like that one.
Right? You treat the water.
Yeah.
Because it's the water that's causing the fish to be sick. And so whenever we're dealing with fear, fear is a signal. So if we're driving our car together, okay, we're driving down the street, and all of a sudden there's a light that pops up on your dash. You don't go, oh my God, the fucking light came on. No, it's a signal. There's either something, maybe the trunk opened, maybe you're low on air, maybe there's a leak in your oil, maybe your coolant in your engine needs topping up. The light is just a signal that something in the engine is going on. So when we have this emotion that's triggered, okay, at the subconscious level, that gives us this feeling that we don't like or we don't know how to deal with, the light goes on, okay, in our brain.
We start experiencing those emotions,
we start
those
experiencing
feelings.
those emotions. And so when we get into, so why is that relevant? And it's relevant because the number one priority of the brain, above all else, okay, above sex, above eating, above all else, is survival and safety first. So when that fear signal is activated in the brain, your brake goes on, your motivation stops, your thinking brain deactivates, and you're either going to fight it, you're going to freeze, you're going to run away, or you're going to faint. Those are the 4 F's of fear, of what happens when that response happens. And to the untrained person, it controls them. To the trained person, like a Navy SEAL, like a firefighter has to learn how to feel fear and go into a burning building. Like an astronaut, she has to learn how to step out of the space station and go work with a robotic arm, knowing that she might be blown away into space. She has fears as well. He has fears as well. And so fear is just a signal. It's not a stop sign. It's not a go sign. It's a be aware sign.
If you think about visualization is simulation. Now, here is the difference.
Whoa, that's good. Okay, go ahead.
So visualization is simulation. So when we close our eyes, or even if our eyes are open and we start to use our Einstein brain, the imagination, we now have just activated one of the biggest centers of our brain, the occipital lobe, that's connected to the motor cortex. It's connected to the motivational circuit, the nucleus accumbens, that releases that dopamine that makes you feel good, that makes you want to take action. So if you visualize yourself achieving the goal, if you visualize yourself behaving in ways that match the new belief, if you even visualize the words, or you take the words on a sheet of paper, and you read them, run your right finger across it, run your left finger across it, close your eyes, see it and feel it, your brain is creating a mental movie with the words. And as it creates a mental movie with the words, that's happening in your subconscious mind. And when you give the subconscious these instructions, a couple things happen because of the way the brain hierarchy works. Number one is survival, but then number two is safety. And then number three is energy conservation. Now, when you do something 20, 30, 40, 50 times, it takes about 66 days to 365 days of repetition to override an old habitual circuit. Not 10 days, not 21 days, 66 to 365. So if you visualize yourself achieving the goal, feeling the success that you want to feel, seeing the belief on the screen of your mind, you are actually creating a neural network through the science of neuroplasticity, and the networks that you reinforce become the most dominant networks. And since your brain wants to conserve energy, if you do this on a consistent basis, your brain says, okay, you're doing this so often, let me just make this automatic. Let me set aside the old beliefs. Let me replace it with the new beliefs. And now you've deliberately and consciously evolved yourself.
One of the things that is really interesting, I mean, just based on what you said, there is something in business, whether it's for salespeople on the phones or salespeople in person. On the phone, it's called call reluctance, and in person, it's called contact reluctance. And so if you think about what does that mean? So I have a call reluctance. I have a reluctance to call somebody that I don't know. And so when some people think about calling somebody they don't know when they're prospecting or meeting somebody they don't know, if you think about what is it that is actually happening that causes them to feel that. So as soon as they have the thought, their neurochemistry kicks in, because the meaning that they have is, if I call somebody that I don't know and they hang up on me, they yell at me, they say something nasty to me, then they are attacking my identity. And in most cases, they have associated the attack on their identity in a negative way, such as, well, maybe it's true that I'm not good enough. Maybe it's true that I'm not smart enough. Maybe it's true that I'm not worthy. So they have a negative association with somebody's response that they don't even know about who they are. So the first thing we work on is, let's focus on your self-esteem, because it's the self-esteem that's being attacked. My self-esteem and self-worth is being attacked. So when my self-esteem and self-worth is being attacked in a negative way or unpleasant way, I'm going to process that as danger in my brain. Now, when you understand the brain's number one responsibility is to move you away from danger or pain, that's number one on its hierarchy of how it behaves. So if there is real or imagined pain or discomfort, your brain says, stop, put the brakes on, go the other way. That's what's happening. So the first thing we do is we teach people, number one, let's change the meaning that you have around what somebody else's response is around who you are or what you're doing or what you're offering them. So the first thing we work on is change the meaning, you change the feeling.
For the people who think that the law of attraction is, think, believe, and you'll achieve, first I'm going to tell you that's. So let's call it.
I love this, man. I love it.
But I want you to think of your brain just a little bit differently, and think of it this way. Let's say you love rock and roll. And let's say rock and roll's on station 95.5. If you're on station 92.1, that might be classical. If you're on station 98.7, that might be punk rock. But at 92.5, that's rock and roll. So imagine coherence just means locking your electromagnetic spectrum of your brain. Lock it and load it on exactly what you want. So what's the vision? What's the goal? What are the beliefs? What are the emotions that create coherence so you're locked and loaded to the frequency of the universe that is matching that goal? Part one. Part two is when you get locked and loaded, you've actually activated the Einstein brain, connected to the motor cortex, connected to the dopamine release in your body. And when that happens, okay, now you're in coherence, but there's another part that happens in this Einstein part of the brain. That's actually what the latest neuroscientists and psychologists are thinking is connected to this GPS part of our brain, to the frequency of where all of the tools, resources, people are that resonate with that frequency. So we've been evolving for 2.5 million years, since Homo erectus to now 108 billion humans on Earth, with a brain that's been changing and growing. And my belief is we're just scratching the proverbial surface. When we talk about, little quantum mechanics or quantum physics with entanglement, how we're all connected, we're all tuning into the frequencies that are us and within us and all around us. Now, when we learn to use our brain better, it's just mind-boggling how we can achieve goals and dreams that we thought were impossible to achieve before. This is the fun part now. I have a philosophy that every moment, every precious nanosecond and moment is perfect. And so when I connect to the perfection of that moment, there's really nothing to do. It's to be aware and to allow, to surrender, but not to give up surrender. But to understand that, as we are talking right now, The oceans don't need any instruction what to do. The planets that are moving in their elliptical orbits around the sun don't need yours or my intervention. The universe, the Milky Way galaxy that's flowing through the universe at 1.5 million miles per hour doesn't need yours and my instruction. So that means that every moment is perfect. So I want to connect to the perfection of every single moment, be aware of that every single moment, and realize that many things are not to my taste, many things I don't understand, but that doesn't mean that the moment isn't perfect. Every human being has a relationship with money, and money is something that envelops people's brains about what they buy, what they don't buy, whether they buy, business class or first class or regular economy seats, whether they're always looking for the cheapest or the most expensive, the nicest or average, how much they will tip, how much they won't. We all have a money story that we've developed mostly from our parents and the people that we live near. And we developed this relationship around money and our beliefs around money. Are we good enough to earn that amount? Are we worthy enough to earn that amount? Is it worth it or not? And so one of the things that Mary Morrissey says that we should do, she says for 7 days, write down the thoughts you have about money and notice when you're thinking and notice what you are thinking and notice that the money story you're telling yourself, is it positive, negative? Is it abundance thinking or limited thinking? Is it scarcity thinking or is it what? Fill in the blank. And so once you know your money story, and this is also something that one of our psychiatrists who works with us, Dr. David Kruger, says, once you know the story, the money story, that's when you can start to be aware of it and go, wow, where did I get these limiting beliefs about money, about my value? Where did I get these limiting beliefs of what I can afford and what I can't? Where did I get these limiting beliefs around how I behave with money?
If you want 10 more amazing rules from John Assaraf, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
You can be advertising on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. You could be doing blogs, videos, you could be doing articles, you could be doing infographics, and the list goes on.